This week's Grandmaster is the Lake of Shadows, and it's actually a pretty hype week to be farming GMs. Lake is a relatively farmable Nightfall, and we have double rewards this week with the brand new Undercurrent Adept grenade launcher as the weekly featured weapon. This is an arc waveframe GL that can roll with perks like Ambitious Assassin and Volt Shot, which is a fantastic alternative to Forbearance for all you solo players out there. So today, I'll be showcasing how you can maximize your Lake of Shadows farms in under 15 minutes, helping you bring home that sweet double loot all week long. If you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into it. Starting with my recommended team comp, we tested several different variations and team setups, but ultimately settled on two Well of Radiance Warlocks with the Cenotaph mask and a Golden Gun Hunter rocking Celestial Nighthawk. Well is essential for speed farming this GM because both boss fights have heavy amounts of incoming damage, and Well allows you to bypass most of that danger with the high damage rocket setup we'll be using today. Cenotaph also feeds your ammo when tagging champions, and since we'll be spamming rockets like crazy, we'll want our entire fire team benefiting this with consistent drops. Celestial Nighthawk absolutely cooks thanks to the solar surge and takes significant pressure off of our damage phases. Banner of War is obviously a viable strategy here if you know what you're doing, but can be tough for most players to use on the floating meatball boss, which is why I didn't recommend it here. As for weapon loadouts, we went with Galahorn and paired it with two legendary solar rockets to match the surge. Rockets provide the most consistent bake for both bosses, as they offer high burst damage that ends these fights quicker than other options. These two encounters can easily result in wipes if you let them go on too long, which is why high damage rockets are so important here. Apex Predator is a fantastic option that's accessible to most players, and I recommend using bait and switch over bipod to maximize your damage. We paired our rockets with a Wish Ender for consistent barrier stuns, Divinity for a range debuff on the meatball, and a nice hitbox tool to bypass the boss's shield, with two unstoppable hand cannons and a disorienting grenade launcher to make the hectic Tormentor encounter a complete joke. As for key armor mods, I went with a pretty standard setup, including heavy ammo finders and scouts to generate additional ammo drops, solar surges on the boots to boost our rocket damage, and a harmonic scavenger to maximize the ammo bricks generated by Cenotaph. The weekly incoming threat is arc, and there are several enemies that for some reason put out absurdly high arc damage, so I definitely recommend running at least one arc resist and pairing it with either a void resist and concussive dampener to help counter the incoming damage from the meatball. With these, you should be able to survive no problem. Diving right into the Nightfall, we have everyone's favorite encounter, the payload. You'll be greeted by enemies on your right-hand side as you spawn in, and the first thing I want to note is that spawn management is key to escorting the payload in a timely fashion. Use your rockets to your advantage here. Have your Galahorn user fire off a rocket near your teammates to give wolf pack rounds every so often, then go to town clearing ads. There are plenty of champions to mark with Cenotaph for consistent heavy drops, which means we can spam our rockets in this opening area. I do recommend jumping off the payload each time you see a new wave of enemies spawn in, allowing you to clear from cover, then continue progressing forward. The first champion will be a barrier on the left side near the church. The second will be an unstop in the courtyard across from the church, with a second unstop that appears near the taken barrier as the payload nears its final destination. You have a ton of space to work with, so simply hop on and off as needed, use your rockets for high octane ad clear, and you'll be through this encounter in no time. As we make our way to Mavic Square, you'll want to prioritize the snipers to your close right and far left, then follow up by clearing the rest of the courtyard. When the last enemy dies, a dropship will appear and spawn an unstoppable champion surrounded by several groups of ads. I recommend dropping a well on this pillar next to the payload, as it gives you a nice line of sight on the enemies as they exit the dropship. You should have your Nighthawk available at this point, and you can use it to one-shot any champion in this Nightfall. Just make sure that your Warlocks are consistently tagging champions with their trace rifles to produce heavy on kill. Enemies will also spawn behind you and can be quite dangerous if you're not paying attention, so keep an eye out and you should be through this area in no time. As you progress through the Taken barrier, you'll want to hop off the payload as enemies begin to spawn at the end of the street. Once dead, there will be 4 Cabal turrets around the corner to your right that you'll want to prioritize first, followed by an unstop that should be pushing up towards you. You can then take your time clearing the wave of Taken enemies further up the road and keep an eye out for the final Cabal turret hiding behind the wall on your right. As the payload rounds the corner, a massive wave of Taken Knights will appear, and since most of them are solar shielded combatants, your rockets should make light work of them. A barrier champion will spawn just before the payload reaches its final destination, and I recommend that you hop off the payload and deal with this champion before starting the boss fight. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with this while trying to do damage, which can easily impact your damage phase. Disorienting grenades are great for this, as it pretty much neutralizes the gladiators that rush towards you when the barrier spawns in, which is another reason why we picked them for this farm. Once clear, you can hop back on the payload and escort it till it comes to a stop, at which point the Taken Blight will dissipate and the meatball boss will show up in its place. You'll want both wells ready to go for this encounter, as this boss does insane amounts of damage that can easily wipe your team if you're not paying attention. I like to place the well to the left of the bus, as it provides cover from the wizards that spawn on your right hand side and gives you a nice sightline on the boss. Rockets go crazy for damage here and will usually health gate the boss in a matter of seconds. Focusing on your damage is important because when the boss reaches 50% HP, it will proc an immunity phase and spawn a large group of adds. You'll want to shift your focus to the wizards on your left hand side, followed by the onrushing thrall, and once dead, you can pop your second well and focus on the boss once more. It will begin casting retaliation attacks much more frequently during the second phase, which is why I like to save Goldie for the second half of the health bar to quickly chunk the boss as we get lower on ammo. The faster we can kill it, the less time we have to spend outside of our well, and just like that, the meatball is dead and we're moving on. The second half of the strike is where we can really start to save some time. As you descend into the sewers, you'll have an unstop on the first level and a barrier champ on the bottom level. The main thing to note here is that you can always clear the adds from a level above them with a couple of rockets taking out entire waves with ease. As you reach the bottom level, make sure to tag the champ and mini boss to restock on heavy, because we'll be using a ton of rockets as we head outside. As we approach the yellow bar phalanxes, drop a well and tag them before killing them. These extra heavy bricks will allow us to spam rockets at the threshers as they spawn on our right hand side at various points throughout the bridge. Clear the remaining enemies in front of you, then push up to the first elevated catwalk. This will spawn the second thresher, and we'll nuke this with rockets just like we did with the last one. You can then push up and Nighthawk the unstop from here. We'll then jump down and jump across this gap where we'll place a well and take out the sea of yellow bars in front of us. This area can be overwhelming, but clearing from this off angle makes it much easier to deal with, and just like that, we're through the bridge encounter and heading inside. There will be an unstop on the bottom level and a barrier champion on the middle level of the stairs as we traverse upwards, neither of which should cause us much trouble. As you enter the next room, wait for the Taken blasters to detonate, then sprint to the close right hand corner and drop a well. This will give us a nice sight line on the unstop and mini boss guarding the exit, while breaking line of sight on the rest of the adds to save you time. You can then collect your ammo and head into the next room that contains a tormentor. You don't have a lot of room to work with, which is why disorienting grenades are so strong here. It prevents the tormentor from aggroing you and allows you to easily break its crit spots for maximum damage. Acolyte eyes will spawn around the room and can definitely mess you up if left alive too long, so keep the tormentor under control, take care of the eyes as they spawn, and once dead, we're moving on to the boss room. You can actually clear the boss room enemies from this hallway, which is useful because as the enemies die, Taken corruption will begin filling the arena. Be careful with rockets here, as you can accidentally break the darkness node and start the boss fight prematurely. So make sure your supers are ready to go, then break the node to begin. I've seen a ton of people cheesing this boss, and it's just not necessary. I want to teach you guys strats that have no risk of being patched, and to be honest, this boss kinda just falls over anyway. Place your well between these two cement columns as it provides a bit of cover from the taken knights that spawn around the arena and gives us safe distance from the boss. Drop a well, use divinity to bypass the boss's shield, and throw in a Nighthawk to make the Lake of Shadows Grandmaster Nightfall a GG. If you found this guide useful, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. And you can also catch me live over at twitch.tv/above, where I stream Destiny content almost daily. Anyways, guys, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas holiday for those who celebrate. This will likely be my last upload for about a week or so, as I'll be out of town visiting family, but know that I appreciate you guys so much, and I look forward to a killer 2024. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.